Hello and welcome to Direct Approach with Wayne Moorhead, an exclusive podcast by DSN filled with candid and insightful conversations with leading corporate executives about today's evolving direct sales channel. In today's episode, Wayne and Heather Chastain, founder and CEO of Bridgehead Collective, embark on a captivating exploration of multigenerational marketing. Uncover the hidden intricacies of precise messaging and segmentation as they unveil surprising insights discovered through Heather's groundbreaking generational research study in the direct selling industry. Discover the unique advantages that direct selling excels at that are key areas where companies can maximize their efforts to meet consumers' evolving needs and attract a new generation looking to earn extra income. From understanding the importance of incentives to recognizing the shift in public perception, this episode has it all. Without further ado, please help me welcome your host, Wayne Moorhead, and today's guest, Heather Chastain, a social selling thought leader with more than 20 years of cross-functional experience in sales, marketing, supply chain, operations, and executive leadership.
Hello and welcome to another episode of DSN's Direct Approach podcast. As always, I'm your host, Wayne Moorhead. And today I'm very fortunate to be joined by someone that we are all familiar with and that I consider one of the brightest minds in direct selling. I've learned a tremendous amount from her. She's been in senior leadership roles at some of the most well-known brands in the channel and has had a huge impact on each of those. Currently, she's leading a consultancy that's focused on helping direct selling companies adapt, grow, and evolve, as well as being a strategic advisor for DSN itself. Please let me welcome founder and CEO of Bridgehead Collective, Heather Chastain. Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Wayne, thank you so much for having me. I had actually almost forgotten it's my second, it's my time.
I should say,
back.
Yes, I should say, we're excited to have you back on Direct Approach. Yeah, the first one, we did a deep dive on strategy and some frameworks and methodology, and I took a tremendous amount of notes, and I've referred to that often and maybe even stolen a trick or two from you from that podcast.
If you put it out on a podcast, it's no longer stealing. It's fair game. And I'm so glad to be back. It feels like that was a really, really long time ago, but what you've done on this podcast has been incredible. I can't wait for every episode. I love it. I love the insights that you bring out of your guests. You have great guests, and I always love your insights. I share the fandom of being just a really great mind in this channel.
Oh, thank you so much. I just feel lucky that Stuart and Shelley and others allow me to even do it. Again, selfishly, I learned so much, and I'm excited to learn even more today from you. So at Spring DSU event, you announced a really fascinating generational research study that really specifically focuses on the direct selling channel. Really great insights, great information. Things that I thought were commonly understood weren't, and perceptions that I had about certain things I just found out were flat out wrong. So I'm excited to really dig in deep and have you share with all of us some of these insights that you found. But before we go too much into the research, do you mind just taking a moment and telling all of us a little bit about Bridgehead Collective and the path that led you to founding it?
Yeah, absolutely. Would be more than happy to. So, Bridgehead Collective, next month will be 3 years in business, which is a lovely milestone.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I plan on taking a moment. And I really, I've been in this industry for 25 years plus and have been fortunate to work for some really, really incredible companies with great fields and great leadership and just, trying new and different things. And one of the things I recognized in the industry is we're at such a pivot point. Right, the pace of change in this channel is greater than it has ever been. And 3 or 4 years ago, I really recognized that I saw so many companies struggling with innovation and strategic planning and being courageous and making the changes that they needed to make because we're so tied to the past. And as somebody who's been in this channel a long time, I realized for a bit I was one of them, right? I was like, why do I have these like deep-seated beliefs about the right way? And I really went through this renaissance of like, I have got to rethink how I view everything. And so that led to this idea that perhaps I could influence the industry more positively by touching a wider swath of companies than just at one. And so I went to my current company and I explained what I was talking about doing, and the owner and CEO, I think he swore, but then in one of the more gratifying moments of my career, he said, "Well, gosh, we'd love to be your first client," and they are a client today, 3 years on, and so
Wow.
that was really great, and I've had really just a fun time working with billion-dollar brands as well as a bunch of fun startups. And as we've made this pivot to affiliate marketing and how we figure that out and the future of compensation plans and streamlining, like it's just been a really, really, really engaging and positive experience. And, Bridgehead, Bridgehead is a military term, and it actually means any position gained that sets you up for future success. And so as I look back on the last few years, I feel like we've done that in our small way. We've come alongside clients and helped set them up in a better position for future success, which was the mission and the goal.
Oh, I love that story. And I completely agree. I know you've worked with a lot of great brands and had a big impact there. And I agree. I think, from being CMO in-house at a few places, as well as being a consultant, when I was in-house, it's always great to bring in that outside perspective. You get really heads down and really focused on the current business, and you don't always have that kind of periphery view of what's going on everywhere else. But somebody that is really steeped in what's going on outside and working with lots of brands at times can bring that broader perspective. So I think that's another great asset that you've brought to a lot of brands.
Yeah, and I've sort of pride myself a little on being the anti-consultant consultant. The collective is now, gosh, we're 7 strong in the collective, and all of us are operators at heart. We've all sat in the chair and had to deliver the P&L results and had to deliver the execution of the tactics. Right? I was so frustrated in my years inside when we engage consultants and they'd spend thousands of dollars, lots of commas, lots of zeros, and deliver the sort of a dusty plan that was a better articulation of things you'd already thought of. And I just didn't want to do any of that. So we are very engaged in execution. We come in and we don't leave till the results are delivered. And I think that's part of what sets us apart, but it's also what lights our fire. Like it's right. About delivering results at the end of the day, not having an articulate thought or a good idea. It's about, can you make it work?
No, it is what you're about. And again, that's a really real risk. I brought in consultants at times. We all know direct selling is very interesting, lots of interesting dynamics, unique dynamics, idiosyncrasies. And if someone hasn't had that perspective and spent time in your shoes, whether it's a CMO or a president or a chief sales officer, and that's something that you've really done. And so people can really trust. That's why, I always go to somebody that has had the same experience, gone through some of the same challenges and opportunities that I have. And I know that that's a perspective and a strength that you and the rest at Bridgehead Collective really bring.
Yeah, thank you. It's been fun, really fun.
Good. Well, congratulations on 3 years. And now I'm excited to kind of dig in on the rest of the podcast. So as you mentioned, we all feel the ground shifting beneath our feet. We know everything's changing really rapidly, not just in direct selling, but across business and across commerce in general. And at times, as we're just discussing, there's really a struggle to articulate and identify what some of these key drivers are of these new dynamics, even what these dynamics are and the potential impact that they're going to have on our businesses. Can you talk a little bit about kind of that need that you saw, the gaps in the marketplace that led you to really kicking off and doing this research?
Yeah, absolutely. And it actually started a year ago, spring at whatever or fall or it was a couple of DSUs ago when Jason Dorsey came and presented. And Jason, of course, is known as the Generation Z whisperer. He's written a couple books on it and runs a research institute dedicated to it. And I heard him talk and we were all just like fascinated. It's super fun to just hear about different generations and what their proclivities are. And, if you're old, can I say us? No, it's just me. If you're old like me, you can harump about the next generation and there's a certain satisfaction in that. But what I realized in talking with Jason afterwards was that all of his research, while presented to the direct selling community, none of that research was actually done for direct selling. We were borrowing insights from other channels and other industries. And so we were talking about how they want to get paid based on research done in the banking industry, or how they want to be trained based on research done in the automotive industry, right? So, and because our industry has such idiosyncrasies, and is at such a time of change, I was like, well, that feels like we could do better than that. And so I started looking around, and nobody done any research. Nobody had conducted any specific research in the channel, but not just to people that are already in businesses, right? So a lot of the research we see is from DSA and other places, great, but they're providing insights from field organizations. So they're telling us as direct selling leaders what our fields are telling them we've done wrong and what we should do to fix it. Like, so that's valuable, but that's very different than trying to understand the motivators and decision factors for all those prospects, people we haven't met yet, people that we want to be part of our future. And so that's when I decided to walk out on a very thin limb and make some investment of time and dollars to see if we could get some research that would benefit the industry as a whole. And so that kicked off it took about a year all in to get the research right and get the questions right. And we partnered with Jason Dorsey and the Center for Generational Kinetics, of which he's president, and really, plugged into their expertise on doing studies, marrying it with the Bridgehead collective expertise of the channel, I think, to come up with some really interesting stuff.
It is really interesting, especially for the reason you just mentioned. There is kind of a dearth of research focused specifically on direct selling. So I know, in my past, I was always trying to make, loose correlations or find some ways to kind of connect a dot to help inform decision-making instead of having really concrete, actionable insights and data that I can build a strategy on. And so I was so glad that you did this. Again, I think the partnership you had with Jason was amazing as well. And I know that this was really an extensive process. This wasn't like, hey, send a quick survey out and 2 hours later, let's correlate the data and get it out in a study. Can you talk a little bit about the methodology and the process that you went through in collecting all this great research?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and one of the hallmarks that we were really trying to establish was great credibility and statistically significant results from the study, right? We didn't want to just be a survey or a poll, or we asked 50 people and this is what they said, or my personal favorite, I have a Gen Z daughter and she said this, which I pull out for funny Gen Z stories all the time, but I should not be making decisions about my business or someone else's based on, the N of one. So it was important to me that we could take this study and be able to talk about how all Americans, now I should point out it's a US-based study, so the next second annual, we're going to go international, but the first annual was a US study. And we did it in a way that mirrored the US Census, both in number of participants, so it had over 1,300 participants, and then it mirrored the US in terms of geography as well as demographic, socioeconomic, education, and generational. And so the conclusions we drew from the study were representative enough, and it's an official designation. I learned so much about research, right? It's a box you have to check that it represents statistically significantly enough of the population that you can make statements like Americans believe this, Americans want this, Americans want that. And that was really, really important to us as well. I also wanted to make sure it was giving us insights across all generations. Sort of going into this, the buzz was all about Gen Z and how do we get Gen Z, because Gen Z is our next level. And I'm interested in that, but I was more interested in understanding the differences between the Gen X that so many of us have as the heart of our field, the older millennials, the younger millennials, and Gen Z. And so how do they compare and contrast amongst other, and are they different or are they the same, right? Those were some of the things we were really trying to understand when we went in to the study. It took probably 3 or 4 months to get the questions right, which sounds crazy because I feel like I work pretty fast, but it's about iterations of questions. And we did test surveys to see how the questions were received. Were they understood? Was the message clear? Were they too biased, not biased enough? Really trying to understand. And so it was a really extensive process to even just get the questions right. and then of course deploying it across the US and compiling the results and all of that. So it like I said, all in, it took a little over 10 months.
Yeah, incredible process. And I'm so glad that you did do it multi-generationally, because some of the things that I found most interesting were those comparisons and those differences between those generations. Each of those, we know that we need to create experiences and journeys and kind of fulfill different needs that they might have. And so that's one of the things I found so fascinating. So thank you for not just focusing on, a Gen Z or one generation, but amazing insight from having it multi-generational.
Yeah, and we'll get into some of the wow facts in a minute, I hope, because some of them are just sort of fun to sort of get your mind going. But somebody was asking me the other day what the biggest takeaway was, if I had one takeaway. And on one hand, it may feel a bit obvious, but given how I've run businesses and I see other people running businesses, I think it's really important people understand it. And it is the insight that each generation has radically different points of view on many topics associated with this, whether it's join fee, how they want to be trained, how they want to be prospected, what rewards and recognition they want, what income means enough, sort of makes it worth it to them. And again, if you just sort of take that out of context, you're like, well, yeah, of course, everybody's going to have different opinions, except the way we've run our businesses on a practical level have often been one homogenous message to everyone that is listening to the words coming out of our mouths, right? And I joked at DSU, I've stood on stage and somebody asked me who we're for, and I'm like, we're for everybody, 18 to 80. Right. Well, we are, but the words I'm using to attract you to my business, to attract you to my opportunity, to my products, really what we learned from this study, that precise positioning, that precision messaging is hugely important to make sure our messages get traction and we're actually attracting and not repelling the generation that we want in our businesses.
Absolutely. And I know we're going to get into it in a little bit, but segmentation is becoming ever more important. And I think we finally have the tools and ability to do that like we haven't before. But so I want to kind of parking lot that for a second, because I think a lot of the results of this is coming down to segmentation and how we treat each of these generations differently. But you mentioned the wow statements, and I would love to start jumping in on some of the findings, because again, I was just amazed and wrong in my initial perceptions on what I thought some of these results were going to be. So I'd love for you to start taking us through.
Totally. And I think, one of the things that we started out just with this, like, what's the perception of the industry, right? Because we all carry the weight of, if you're listening to this podcast, you carry the weight of the stigma of the channel on you. You just do, either because you come from outside the channel and you're feeling it, or you grew up in the channel and you're feeling it. Like if you're not paying attention. So we know that we have this belief that there's this huge stigma out there against direct selling in the circles that we live in. And honestly, like I was joking with Jason Dorsey backstage, if there's a book that comes out of it, it might just be called They Don't Hate Us. Like that might be the name of it. Because when we talked about perception of the industry, we used, and here's what we did. So part of it is nomenclature. Words matter, right? And so we tested what is each generation's perception of a whole bunch of different phrases, right? If you can think of one I didn't include, by all means, we'll include it in the next one. But from digital marketing, referral marketing, direct selling, social selling, network marketing, influencer marketing, affiliate marketing, multi-level marketing, like all the phrases. And we said, what is your perception by generation, right? Is you have a positive, and it was like positive, very positive, neutral, or negative, right? That was sort of the spectrum. And across the board, over 50%, all except multi-level marketing and interestingly affiliate marketing, were all above 50% positive in the top two boxes, meaning more than half of Americans have a positive or very positive perception of all of those phrases that I shared, again, except affiliate marketing and multi-level, interestingly enough. But what was really fascinating coming out of that is that this younger millennial category. And by the way, just a quick cheat sheet, an easy way to remember it right now. It's not precisely right from exactly the years, but for right now, I just do 25, 35, 45, and 55. That's sort of the breakdown. So under 25 is Gen Z, 25 to 35 is younger millennial, 35 to 45 older millennial, and over 45 is Gen X. Okay, so again, it's not precise, but close enough. So if we looked at this younger millennial category, this 35 to 45 range, right? They were hands down across the board, statistically, massively significantly more positive about every single way of describing this industry than anyone. Like numbers like 67, 68% positive on direct selling, like on affiliate marketing, on referral marketing, on network marketing, like really, really positive takeaways. And so what's the insight from that? It means we can have a little of our strut back, guys. That's what that means. We don't need to spend quite so much energy scrambling for the next thing we call this thing that we do, that we think we're going to somehow fool somebody into thinking it's something other than what it is. Like, we can have a little more confidence in what we call ourselves and how we market it, knowing there's a whole lot of people out there that have a positive perception of it.
Yeah, this was one of the findings that I found most surprising, where I thought it was probably going to be a very similar, an average kind of baseline across these generations. But the difference from Gen Z to others was a marked difference. I mean, vastly different than other generations, which did surprise me. But as I kind of noodled on this one a little bit, they're just used to people sharing products that they love socially. It's in their feeds, it's their friends, influencers, affiliates. It's just something they've grown up with. And so it just seems normal to them. And it's also maybe one of the stats that I found most promising, most exciting, most optimistic for us in direct selling.
Agree. And again, I think if nothing else, if it can give us that confidence that this is a market that we don't have to be apologetic towards, that alone, how posturing and sort of strut and energy can change how our messages are delivered. If nothing else, if it gives you that sort of a headwind. Now, it's also helpful to look, depending on what your market is. So say you want to target into Gen Xers a little bit more, or older millennials, you can see the breakdown of that as well and understand, well, okay, in that case, really they're not getting the influencer marketing. Like that is definitely a younger millennial and Gen Z thing. So don't talk to them about being influence marketers. They won't know what that is. They won't like it. They've got a negative perception of it, because I think it's bunch of people sitting around doing nothing and making money for it, right? So there's nuances in there as well when you get into targeting. But my big takeaway from that wow stat was they really don't hate us. It's okay. It's all right.
Yeah, super encouraging, super promising, and super surprising for me.
Yeah, me too.
So what were some of the other ones that really stood out to you? Can you keep taking us through some of these key findings?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's sort of go in order, right? One of the things that when we looked, so we started with sort of perception of industry, and then we sort of got into what's going to make my decision. What are my obstacles? What am I afraid of? Why would I not want to start a business? And that very drastically between Gen X and then the younger millennial group as well. So Gen X were worried about the hidden costs to starting a business. So they were worried it would cost too much, and there would be hidden costs that were not, disclosed to them, or they did not understand, and so they were fearful of the dollars. Younger millennials and Gen Zs, not so much. They didn't care so much about the income, something like 30%, very, very low, said that would be a factor. But fear of failure and feeling like they do not have the skills to be successful, 84%. 84%. Like that's the reason they're not. And I think there's two, as you dig deeper in the data, there's two big reasons for that. One, and Jason Dorsey pointed this out at our deep dive event a couple of days ago in Dallas with DSU, is that younger millennials and Gen Zs, their forays into things that might not work out live a whole lot longer online and in social than it ever did for Gen Xers and older, right? Like, we try something, we were excited about it, it failed, it's gone. For this group, it will be forever in their feed that for 25 minutes last year they were super excited about selling fill in the blank, right? And so they have to live that on one hand, it's good. They get to live the success online, but then if it doesn't work out, they have to live the failure online, and it lasts a lot longer. So that's causing some companies that we're working with to rethink unboxing videos, for example, right? So nobody's going to be embarrassed they recommended a product for a while and now they stopped recommending it. That's very common. We all change. But if you're excited about getting started with my business kit and I'm starting this, then all of a sudden you're putting yourself in a really vulnerable spot that's going to lead, and there's a reluctance there. So that was an interesting insight. But the real driving factor is just this belief from younger millennials and Gen Zs that they do not have the life skills available to them. They do not feel confident that they can be successful in this. They feel like they missed them somewhere along the way. But what they said was, show me how I'm going to have a trusted guide and a roadmap for success in my first 90 days. Show me those two things and I'm all in. But they're important because it's not just it's not just here's your roadmap for 90 days. Here's what you do. It's a trusted guide, a human, a person, a mentor. Mentor's a funky word, but they want the trusted guide. Guide is the word that resonates. That was super, super interesting to me. And it dovetailed with other things we saw that would be other insights, right? Like younger millennials and Gen Z, 82% of them want to be onboarded at least partly in person. They don't want online. And again, why? Insecurity. They're not feeling confident that they'll know what to do, and they want somebody to walk through that journey with them every step of the way.
Yeah, and I think this also correlates to one of the other findings just around the importance of product education, that not only do they want the guide, but they need to understand and know the products, the ingredients before they go out and start sharing it, which, we always kind of encourage people like, oh, just go out and start. But it's a real issue. It can be a real stumbling block for a lot of these individuals. And so I think that helps kind of inform a lot of what we need to do. Because I do think that onboarding and kits and all that, which I know you're going to get into, has changed so much. Yeah. As we've gone more and more digital, that personal guide that they want has been less available. It seems like.
Totally. And I think that, one of the things we asked about was like, what's going to motivate you to get started talking about the business to somebody else? And certainly that confidence in my knowledge of the product, far and away number one. It was a ranking where they ranked the top 3. 41% of people ranked that as their number one, that they needed confidence in the products that they were seeing. Now, as you got older, they not only needed confidence in the education, but they actually needed a personal story. Like they were like, and I have to believe it works for me. Interestingly, men, not so much. As we sliced and diced it, women seemed they really cared that it actually worked for them. Men were sort of a little bit more ambivalent about the fact. It's like, worked or didn't work. I'm going to sell it. It's okay. So that was sort of a fun.
That's why we don't ask for directions. That's why we never ask for directions.
Fine. It'll be fine. Just take it.
Yeah, exactly.
Registration for the Fall DSU event is now open. Join 500 plus leaders at the channel's largest executive attended event on Wednesday, October 11th and Thursday, October 12th in Irving, Texas. DSU is a 2-day masterclass packed with cutting-edge insights, strategies, and game-changing ideas from more than 30 industry executives and subject matter experts. You'll discover emerging trends and dynamics shaping the industry, including enhanced affiliate marketing, digital strategies, and generative AI. Learn from top-rated speakers like Blake Mallon with Prove It, Deb Hayes with Neora, Al Bala with Manatech, as well as Wayne Moorhead and Heather Chastain on this very podcast, and new speakers to the DSU stage like John Akala with It Works, Jen Ashby with Savvy, Madison Millardi with Lime Life by Alcone, Brian Gill with For Life, Roger Morgan with Paw Tree, Nancy Bogart with Jordan Essentials, and many more. Plus, panels featuring service-based companies, updates and new information on enhanced affiliate models, a CEO panel, and so much more. Don't miss the opportunity to connect with future-focused executives and gain valuable insights that can change how you think about the industry, your business, success, and your strategic plans for 2024. Register now at dsu2023.com and secure your spot. Now, a word from one of our premier supplier sponsors. DSN is honored to be supported by industry suppliers that partner with companies across the channel to help enhance, streamline, and grow your businesses. This episode is sponsored by InfoTrax. For 30 years, InfoTrax has developed exceptional software solutions. Their cloud-based platform offers everything customers need for a successful compensation plan. Their commission calculator, web-based development portal, data subscriptions, commission management, health monitoring displays, and support team are here for you. You may have heard recently that InfoTrax partnered with BigCommerce, a flexible software-as-a-service platform to help you grow and convert more customers. BigCommerce equips you with fast-scaling e-commerce success with e-commerce tools and customizable storefronts that fit your brand. And the user-friendly interface empowers you to make changes with clicks, not code, to improve productivity and reduce costs. Visit infotraxsys.com. That's infotraxsys.com to learn more. Now let's get back to the interview with Heather Chastain, founder and CEO of Bridgehead Collective.
And part of that product education and getting them up to speed on the products, it doesn't have to be this lengthy process. It can be done kind of in moments and in minutes, just providing them the basics, the word tracks, a general understanding that gives them just enough to go out and share. It doesn't have to be this lengthy education program that then slows the duplication model down.
No, it's exactly right. And interestingly, one of the things we dove into in great detail was, how do you want to receive this kind of training or information for a variety of topics? Again, with this idea of precision positioning, right? So, and what we discovered is that people don't want to, and this is for all Americans, regardless of generation, there's differences between them, but they don't want to receive product education training in the same way they receive updates on product availability, right? Or they don't want to learn about the compliance requirements for a product in the same way that they're learning about our cause-related marketing. And right now, so many of us, we pick a channel of communication that we double down on primarily, whether it's we email everything, or we post everything, or we text everything, and or we email and post and text because we're desperate for everybody's attention. But what this showed is that if we can be precise in how we roll out our communication plans and our strategies, listening to the data of how they want to get that information, then you're giving them product information via a self-serve portal in snippets that are 3 minutes or less per product, which is what they said very clearly they wanted. Then how much more effective is that going to be in them receiving our message, not just us, putting it out there and saying, well, I don't know why they don't get it. I posted it, I emailed it, I sent it, Are we sending it in the way they want to receive it? And that's what this data is really, really showing us, which is cool.
Yeah, that really is. So what was another one that really stood out to you?
Oh, gosh. Okay, so I have a funny one that I have no solution for. It's just funny because it's a little fun to poke fun at other generations. It's not so much fun when they poke it on yours, but Gen Z. Okay, so this is funny about Gen Z. So in the list of things that they were looking for from a direct selling business, right? 89% said they wanted to be a leader. Okay, cool. 31% said they want to build a team. Well, how do you right? Takes a minute. You got to think about it. So what can we learn from that? A, it's just funny, but B, it's also saying it's a skill gap thing, right? They want to be identified and they're fine assuming a leadership kind of a role, but they're petrified. They have no idea how to build a team. So then it circles back into what would make you more confident. It just keeps getting back into that. Give me a trusted guide. Highlight the idea that I have somebody who's going to walk me through. And by the way, what an amazing, as we look at separating direct selling from a more, sort of the gig economy and side hustle kinds of things, what an amazing distinction for us and how encouraging that should be. We got tons of trusted guides. we got those in spades, So I think that's cool. The other thing, and this has been probably the most quoted stat from it that I've seen, is about the dollar amount that makes it worth it to be part of the business. And this is one of those where I looked at it and I went, oh my gosh, I have totally been thinking about this completely wrong, and that was that was one of the things I was really worried about when we did this study. I shared this with you, Wayne, earlier, that I was worried that I'd do all this and then I'd spend a year being like, well, as we suspected, blah, 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 or this study confirms what we've all known to be true, blah, 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 blah. And it was just so the opposite. I mean, my first reaction, honestly, was like, oh my gosh, I've been giving such bad advice. I got to change, right? And that's cool. We're all growing and learning. But this round around income. So the way we asked the question, we said, what amount of income would make it feel to receive in your first 30 days in business would make it feel worth it to you? And we used the phrase worth it intentionally. And that's part of where Jason Dorsey and his research team really helped. They vetted these phrases for a really long time across a lot of industries to help get both a dollar and a value statement. So a worth it means that I acknowledge I've put time into it. It's not so much about the dollar amount. It's that did my time that I expect to put into it really be offset by the income I got from it, right? So it's a value statement. And so could not have been more different answers across the generations. Gen Z and younger millennials, by the way, all in all Americans, the sweet spot is $250 to $499. That's the sweet spot. Okay. And that's a month. Far and away, younger millennials, 250, that 250 is really the number. You can go up to 499. You can't go above 500. And interestingly enough, when you talk about income more than $1,000, not only is it not exciting, it's a massive turnoff. You're completely putting them off because they think immediately that's a scam. It's not possible. It's no way.
Or that it's unattainable.
Yeah. They're just like, I'm not only not buying it, I'm so out on anything you're talking about. It was like a massive detractor it's a shutdown. It was a shutdown question, right? And that for me, because I've always said, if it doesn't have a comma in it, you're not talking about a number big enough. Like that's what's worth it, which Gen Xers, absolutely, the number was over $1,000, like very clearly that they were like, it's got to be more than $1,000. So never have I more firmly identified with my generation, I think, than on that question. But that to me was, I mean, honestly, just if companies everywhere would start thinking about the demographic they're going after and start talking about income in a way that resonates with that generation, think of the increased power and penetration and conversion that we're going to get, not knowing that we're in many ways turning off the very people we want. That was like probably for me one of the bigger ones.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that one has such tremendous implications for our companies and the channel as a whole. And I know you and I have kind of talked about a lot of this kind of over the weeks and months. There's so much around meeting consumer expectation. Success of any company is going to be determined by, did you meet the expectations that you set forth? And I know I'm on my soapbox a little bit here, but I know that that's been one of the challenges we've had. And really has kind of helped to drive the unfortunate, as you mentioned earlier, kind of stigma, even though it's a misperception. But this focusing on the absolute highest ranks or highest income levels and setting that out as the expectation almost sets people up to be unsatisfied and not have their expectations met. But when I saw these numbers, these are all so doable for everyone, even people that don't put in kind of that maximum amount of effort or time that it takes to really advance and rank. But this is very doable. And I think that it also positions us really well to compete with a lot of the other income opportunities that this new kind of gig economy have introduced. But I was super excited by this because it gives us such a huge opportunity to meet and manage those expectations over time.
Yeah. I mean, and this is a soapbox it is yours, but it's one I will proudly stand and hold stable for you to continue standing on, because we are so like-minded on this. And it is that idea of missed expectations that causes, and even though I did double down on that, they don't hate us, it's true. But Gen X, they're decidedly negative. And some of that's because they've lived through a little bit more of these missed expectations. But think if we take that insight and apply it to, even as we talk about, so many companies are putting in these sort of staggered selling commissions now, right? Which is definitely a good trend and people like it and want it. But when we think about even how we talk about those, right? Depending on your generation, maybe it isn't, you can earn up to 50%. Maybe it's starting at 15%.
Yeah.
I mean, and I know that's a subtle sort of thing, but there's a hype and I'm starting up to 50 and then all of a sudden, but then I've got fine print and I start here and I go up, as opposed to, okay, I can earn up to 50, I can earn 15%. When if I do this, I can earn 20. And if I do this, I can earn more. It's a mindset shift. But what the generational data is showing us is those younger generations, they want you to start here and build up. Don't start here and come down. And I think that alone is just a really powerful messaging piece of information to help us all.
It is one of the biggest opportunities I think that we have. Another one that I found really timely and really interesting. It's been part of our practice forever, but I think a lot of us over the last couple of years, especially maybe post 2020, have gotten away or tried to remove some of the incentives and bonuses. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the importance of having those and rewarding in that way versus just the paycheck or the deposit into the account.
Yeah, and this is really across all generations. It's one of the areas we saw more commonalities actually than any other category, was in the shift of incentives and recognition and what people want to work for. And I will tell you all, incentive trips and this opportunity to experience travel, absolutely far and away the top, by a lot, the top driver for behavior, the top incentive that's been requested, and the thing they will work the hardest for. And that was across all generations. So as you're looking, I know in this day and age with airplane costs being whatever, like it's tempting to sort of say, man, how does that trip ROI? And I think we need to start thinking about incentive trips increasingly as a cost of doing business and a core piece of your comp plan, not an incentive that's going to ROI based on its own qualifications. And I know that was kind of an in the weeds answer, but that's the operator coming out like it. That's the way to view incentive trips. And I also think as we're looking at annual gatherings, conferences, seminars, I mean, data is definitely telling us interest in those is waning. That idea of walking across stage, being recognized in front of your peers, it's just across all generations. It's just not nearly as appealing as it once was. It's a really, really big drop off. And we're certainly seeing it. I'm seeing it across the industry with just attendance at those events. Some people are still getting lots and lots and lots, but it's everybody's seeing some softness.
Yeah, it's really interesting because those incentives, those trips are a form of recognition, but yet they don't want as much of the public recognition or stage recognition as they might have had in the past. So just the form of that recognition and the thank you and the appreciation that companies show is shifting, also, or at least the emphasis.
100%, but also think about the manifestation of how they share that recognition, right? Because in terms of what's desirable right now, what will create good content, because at the heart, so much of the future of this channel is all about authentic content. It's much, much easier to generate lots of authentic content when you're at a resort in Mexico, right? Watching a sunset, getting pampered, getting dinner, than it is to show a picture of yourself walking across a stage in front of a lot of other people waving with hype in the background. In terms of authenticity and relatability and sort of the anti-hustle culture thing that's going on right now, it's also part of why they want those kinds of recognitions, is because that then gives them more vehicles for content to create in a meaningful way than some of the more traditional things that we might have been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting implications from all of that. So we kind of pushed pause on the conversation around segmentation. Obviously, we talked about the multi-generational aspects to this. There is so much nuance in each of these answers in a really cool way, where so many of these connect and inform and at times contradict that you really need to dig deep to really understand what's going on. And by contradiction, I meant kind of that difference around the leadership example that you mentioned. Can you talk a little bit about now, as a result of this, how you're looking at the importance of segmentation in the industry and kind of what we need to be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think we were all sort of bought into the idea that one size fits all marketing is not the thing anymore. I think we all know that and knew that, and certainly in the retail and e-commerce space, we're seeing that. You know, we get personalized marketing messages based on the fact that I wandered down to the pillow aisle at TJ Maxx, right? So like we get that some of that is out there, but in our businesses, in our marketing and communication to our field leaders, we still had a very strong one-size-fits-all positioning around the business opportunity, around the opportunity presentation, around the video, around how we talk about the opportunity. And I think for a couple of reasons. One, it always sort of felt daunting to sort of execute, right? So like, well, I can barely get one thing out. How am I going to get 4 things out? And I think it's probably a podcast for another day, Wayne, but I think talking about how we can use some of the recent advancements in AI and other ways of generating content to help us with that, that's a way of executing this. And we're working with some clients now to help them do that. But I would just completely double down on identifying your primary segment. We're not coming out of this research, Wayne, and saying you need to go after younger millennials, or you need to go after Gen Z, or you need to go after who's going to be the best fit for your product line. At the end of the day, we are product-driven companies, or we should be, right? So pick the product that's going to go at the generation that's going to respond the best to your product. You've got a big anti-aging thing. You're not going to go have a whole lot of success with Gen Zs, no matter how much they want a business opportunity, right? So pick, but also don't be afraid to double down into that generation. And we can slice the data if people are interested as an engagement. We can slice the data and pull out just what generation you might be looking for to help precisely message things and tailor to that audience. But I just can't tell you enough how it wasn't just that one generation prefers something over another. It was also that headwind. That it's that a generic message or a message with the wrong words is actually going to put them off put. Yeah. So like that if you could see my hands, y'all are listening, not watching. I'm much better with my hands. You should watch.
It's fascinating for me. It's very helpful. The hands are very helpful to me.
Yes, I can't speak if I can't use my hands. So that idea of precise messaging, particularly around opportunity, but across all facets, it was crystal clear in the data, crystal clear.
I love that you said that. And I think that also might be one of the most important things we've even discussed thus far, because to your point earlier, we don't like saying no. Mm-hmm. We don't like saying no to anyone. We want that, let's go target 18 to 80 and we're for everybody. And, there's that old famous saying, if you try to be everything to everyone, you end up being nothing to no one. Not grammatically correct, but the point I think is well very taken. Strong. And so I do think it's important to identify that core audience from a generational, from a demographic, from a needs, wants, desires, and go hard, double down on that. And then you will ultimately get the secondary and tertiary audiences that are kind of around them. But if you do water it down, to your point, it ends up just turning off instead of, oh, it just passes by, no big deal, no harm, no foul. Well, it actually is a negative brand experience.
That you were much more articulate about that than I was, Wayne. I mean, that is exactly right. And I've also, having sat in the seats as you have, that's a hard thing to ask a company to do, to say, I am going to put some blinders on. I'm not going to not allow them, but I'm going to put some blinders on to the needs and desires, except this group that I really want to make sure I'm catering to. But man, if we can think about the productivity of that messaging, if we really can push it all into that channel. And this study, it went through just words to use. Like we probed, what words do you want to be called? What language do you want to talk about joining? Spoiler alert, it's not join, by the way. So right. like what are those phrases? So there's so much here to help people precisely tailor that message. But first you got to pick who you're tailoring it to.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, it's like shining a spotlight. Again, it's going to be brightest in the center. It still illuminates, farther than you think. It diffuses light, to a very far range, but you really just want to shine on who that key consumer, that key distributor is, and just overserve them, and you'll pick up all these other ancillary audiences, I think, along the way. So besides segmentation, what are some of the other ways that companies in direct selling today can really take and use a lot of the findings and insights from this research?
Well, sort of coming back to this idea that we are operators at heart here at Bridgehead, and we don't like anything that's not an actionable insight. I mean, I'm fascinated. I could talk about this for hours and have over family dinners, much to my family's dismay. But we decided to create, so we've created a generational attraction assessment tool. So it's a proprietary tool that takes a look at 50 elements and touch points within your business across 10 of the sort of key areas in the survey. Everything from perception, prospecting, kit design, recruiting, retention, recognition, team building, income, comp plans, all the things. And we'll give you a score, an attraction score across all generations. And so it's a numerical thing on a scale of 1 to 100. You'll be able to see how today you stand up against and sort of appeal to each generation. And then if you'll tell us your target generation, we can then give you a list of recommendations on how you can improve your attraction score in each one of those 10 key categories with some specific recommendations, right? Like join kit starting price, right? What should be included in the starting kit? All the things that we worry about every day. So that's probably the best way if people are interested in sort of figuring out where their company stands, and then getting some advice from the data on how to position to improve that piece. That's what I suggest. And you can just go to shameless plug, bridgeheadcollective.com, click on research and fill out the form, and we'll be in touch with you if anybody's interested in that. It's a really, it's fun. Everybody likes a score. Everybody likes a little scorecard. So it's just sort of a fun way to bring a pretty tedious research study to life.
No, I think it's great to be able to dig into that specificity at the company level and to be able to bring in the expertise and understanding. I'm also curious, kind of just generally, like kind of on average, if you were CEO at a direct selling company tomorrow, you've kind of read through this research. What are 1, 2, or 3 things that you're going to kind of shift or start doing tomorrow to make sure that you're remaining relevant and that you are really honing in on each of these generational segments?
First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to just do a scrub of my site everywhere and every place I talk about the opportunity. First thing, I'm going to clearly define which generation it is that I am going after, and I'm going to pick one. Like to your spotlight, I love your spotlight example. I'm going to pick one, whatever it is. And then I'm going to scrub every single bit of information that I have on my site around how I become a part of that, whatever language I use, join, build a team, leadership. I'm going to precisely change all those words that will resonate most specifically with that target. I'm going to do a quick check on my product, make sure that my product's doing what it needs to do for that generation, and I'm leading first with product and sharing and simple. And then I am going to simplify the heck out of the join process. I'm going to give them a physical kit. It's going to be less than $100. And I am going to very clearly walk them through that first 90 days, regardless of generation, and just ruthlessly, painfully edit. Edit
to amplify. That's another great one.
Edit to amplify.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you mentioned in there the importance of going product first. We talked about segmentation, and sequencing of messaging is just as important. Not just the right message to the right person, but the right message at the right time in the right order. And so it doesn't mean that the opportunity language or any of the business side goes away. It's the order with which the information is delivered and received. I think that's super, super important.
Totally. And that shows up in the data around the importance of product and product training and product confidence. And this is about leading with product. At the end of the day, that's what we are about and we should be about. We should be product consumer-centric companies focused on delivering great products to people that make a difference in their lives, and then sharing the opportunity as an outcropping of that. And again, in a tailored and specific way, depending on who it is you're going after and all the other nuances in your plan.
Yeah, 100%. So what do you feel, kind of zooming way out, what do you feel this finding tells us about direct selling's place going forward?
I was pretty encouraged, to be honest, about the results. I've told this story before, but I was talking to actually when Jason Dorsey was in speaking a year or so ago, I was talking to my oldest daughter about it. And I said, I really believe that this industry, if we don't pivot, if we don't make some good choices, that this industry is going to go away, you know? And she looked at me, ever practical, and says, well, probably thinking about it the lens that it's been the sole support of our family for her entire life. She says, well, how long do you need it to last, Mom? And I thought, well, isn't that interesting? That motivation for how long existing direct selling companies need it to last without change isn't probably the right question, right? And because the truth is, the industry is going to be around as long as I need it to be around. Again, see the note earlier, how old I am. But that's not why we're in this industry, Wayne. That's not why we do what we do. We do what we do to create opportunities for future generations. We do what we do to help change the trajectory of people's lives and the financial futures within their families. And so there's this great obligation to sort of come at this and not preserve it, but improve it for the next generation, right?
Yeah.
Build on it. Yeah, it's not preserve, it's build, it's change, it's pivot, it's adapt, it's all those good action words. That was sort of right when I was deciding to do this study. It's like, well, gosh, let's get some facts behind here and do it with things. So I was really encouraged by this data. What this showed me was actually quite hopeful. From my point of view, that if we do this right, if we have the things people want, we're just maybe not saying it in the way that they are recognizing it or understanding it, or it's covered in too much stuff, or it's buried under too much noise, or it's too soft because it's trying to attract too many people. But the kernels of what we offer, the future generations want. And that's the truth is, younger millennials, older millennials, Gen Zs, those are our future. That's what's going to be they're going to be our sellers in now 10 years, 15 years. And so I was really encouraged. I was really hopeful and excited. And it gave me sort of new wind in my sails about how many companies are embracing this change and embracing this moment of opportunity that exists. And I think it is a seminal moment. I think it's a pivotal moment in this channel, and I'm excited about it.
I am as well. I had a really similar experience going through it as well. I kind of, when I initially read through it, I kind of cracked it open going, oh no, like, is this going to tell me some things that I really don't want to know? Not that I want to keep my head in the sand, but I had the same experience where I found it so hopeful, so promising, because of course there were signs and signals of where we need to pivot and adapt and shift and evolve in certain areas. But it also highlighted the importance of so many things that we are so good at. Mentorship, experience development, education, incentives, entrepreneurship, all these things that we have done better than any other channel, any other industry, that have been some of our superpowers for more than 100 years. And we just need to double down and continue to get better and deliver it to new audiences. But I was really excited by this as well, and just fascinated. I read through it so many times because, again, I have such a hunger for direct selling specific information. It is so rare to get. And the fact that we have this, I think, is something that really every direct selling company should have. And to that point, you said to go to the website to learn more, but where specifically can they go to get the research? I can't remember, is it license? Is it purchase? Is it
Yeah. So just go to bridgeheadcollective.com, and right at the very top, it says learn more about the research study. So you click that, and it's just name, address, email. And reach out and sort of let us know what you're looking for. There's a lot of different ways we can engage with companies to help. This generational attraction assessment is one of them. Like if that you just sort of want a bench line, but we're actually engaging with some companies right now to do an additional study for a segment of market that they are really interested in. So we're actually doing a whole separate study with a client. We're taking the same survey questions and deploying them to their field and another client. There's lots of different ways. Or maybe you just want some help with a project you're working on that maybe you're trying to revamp recognition, or you're looking at your starter kits, or you're looking at your comp plan, and you'd like a review of that through the generational lens. We can certainly help slice the data in a whole bunch of different ways and help you make some better decisions on those paths. So lots of different ways to engage. It's why we did it. We really want to see it put in action. So if you're working on a project right now that you think, gosh, I'd love to hone in a little bit more specifically, what should I call my new affiliate sellers, right? How should I reward and comp? What are the things that are the most interesting? We can certainly help you comb through this data and figure that out.
Absolutely. I think that assessment that you mentioned, I think that's really powerful to have that baseline to kind of inform the go forward and then measure the success over time. Heather, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being an amazing champion. Thank you for bringing us research that we would not have without you and that we don't normally get. Please keep doing it. Let us know how we can help in that endeavor. Congrats on 3 years at Bridgehead Collective. Tell congrats to everybody else on the team. And just thank you for being here on Direct Approach.
I will, and thanks, Wayne. Thanks for all you do. I just, like I said, I love your insights, and it's always fun when someone is so like-minded. It's easy to say, I think you're right on everything, because mostly we agree on almost everything. But it was super fun to talk to you today. Thanks so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for tuning in. Please take a minute to give a rating and review to help Direct Approach continue to provide candid interviews and insights for direct selling corporate executives. And register today for DSU2023.com to join 500 plus of your peers October 11th and 12th for the DSU Fall event in Irving, Texas. Thank you for listening and supporting DSN and the Direct Approach podcast.